So today we'll be starting the chapter of nutrition. Just to keep in mind, it is a very vast chapter. It will span multiple lectures. Okay? But today is kind of just like an introductory class for nutrition. What main concepts you have to keep in mind while studying this chapter? Because it's a very vast chapter, some of you who may have gone through this chapter beforehand might notice that it's a very vast chapter and you might be confused at what to cover, what not to cover. I will just guide you how to study the chapter overall, not the exact details, because the details are very vast. You have to study for yourself day after day, then only you will remember, otherwise you will not be able to remember. So this chapter is one of those which you have to study from the start of the year till the end of the year. The application of this chapter will be through other chapters as well. So that is why this chapter is very important. It forms the basis of health, preventive as well as curative aspect. So, nutrition foundations for a healthy life. We will cover some definitions within nutrition, some important definitions. Then some insight about the reference body weight or reference man and woman. What is RDA, what is EAR and others. Those are some indices that you have to learn. Then what is a balanced diet? What are some dietary goals? And some information about macronutrients and micronutrients, and finally some special diets that you give to some vulnerable age groups or vulnerable populations. So definitions. Now there are two terms that you will come in this chapter, forward in this chapter, that is nutrition and dietetics. Okay? So nutrition is the science of food and its relationship to health. Okay, not just the study of food, but how it relates to health, that is nutrition. And dietetics is a practical application for this principle. Okay, how to apply this principle or science of nutrition into your everyday life. That is planning of meals for the healthy as well as the sick people. So the dietetics is basically planning a diet to maintain the health. Okay. Now, I know you already know all this from maybe school level, but still an overview. There are two types of nutrients, mainly macronutrients and micronutrients. So macronutrients, they consist of these carbohydrates, fats and proteins because they form the majority or bulk of our diet. Okay. So they are also called the proximate principles. Carbohydrates form around 50 to 80% of our diet, protein is 10 to 15% and fats is for 15 to 30%. Now each of these have different functions, as you know. The carbohydrates are the principal energy source, the main energy source for our body. But proteins and fats also provide energy, but they are not the main source. So what are their functions? Proteins are usually for repair and growth, and fats are for the energy and absorption. Okay, it helps in the absorption of diet, it helps in storage of energy. Okay, so that is the main or the proximate principles of our diet, the macronutrients. So naturally now we come to the micronutrients, that is the vitamins and minerals. And you have to remember that the vitamins and minerals, apart from that, there are an important part called the dietary fibers. Okay, they are also important for our diet. In the vitamins, this A, D, E, K are the fat-soluble vitamins, and B group of vitamins and C are water-soluble. B group of vitamins can range from B1, B2, B3, B6, then B5, B9, B12, folic acid and etc. Minerals, there are some main minerals like calcium, phosphorus, sodium, magnesium, iron, potassium, iodine and fluorine. And the trace minerals are zinc, copper, cobalt, chromium, selenium, molybdenum and antioxidants. So everything in small amounts are very important to our body. If you are constantly deficient in one of them, they can cause many problems, health problems. Now, before, when these nutritional factors were not known, many diseases like thiamine deficiency, then scurvy, these were thought to be like diseases with no known origin. But slowly these diseases have been managed and now are probably not seen anywhere almost, maybe in some remote areas, but maybe it is almost exterminated by provision of these good nutrients in our diet. So nutrition is very important to prevent some basic diseases in our body. Now we come to the RDA, EAR and the reference body weights. Now, why are we studying these indices or these terms? Because they are, you know that you need macronutrients and micronutrients, right? But how much? What is the quantity of that? So the quantitative estimation is done by these indices called the RDA and EAR. So what is RDA? It is the average daily dietary intake level of a nutrient. It is considered sufficient for about 97.5% of the population, means almost all the population in each age and gender group. Now, why 97.5? Why 97.5 is, I'll just show you. Okay, it is already shown here. You can see there is a normal curve, right? This is a normal curve. For example, this consists of the whole of the population. Okay? For example, this is the whole of the population and these people are getting that nutrient, these people are getting less of that nutrients. That is why the graph is downwards on either side. If you, this is the midpoint is called the mean, this is the mean, and if you go 2 standard deviations beyond it, okay, plus minus 2 standard deviation beyond it, this covers around 97.5% of the population. So the nutrient intake, how much nutrient intake a person should take, if it is satisfying or meeting the needs of 97.5% of the population, then that is the RDA. So that is why it is written as 97.5% of the healthy individuals in each age and gender group. So that is RDA. Now, the estimated average requirement, what is EAR then? It sounds almost same, RDA that you have already heard before, recommended dietary allowance. But what is EAR? The average daily nutrient intake level expected to satisfy the needs of 50% of healthy individuals in each age and gender group. Means the middle 50%. The middle 50% of the population, if their nutrient intake is satisfied, adequate, then it is called the estimated average requirements. Now, in the new ICMR guidelines given by the National Institute of Nutrition, they have taken EAR rather than RDA. They are recommending that you follow the EAR guidelines of the nutrition rather than the RDA. Okay, so how much quantity of, for example, carbohydrate or protein or any vitamin you need, you should study the EAR rather than the RDA. That is what they are recommending now since 2020. So that is the estimated average requirements. Then there is something called adequate intake. For example, you don't know the RDA or the EAR of a certain nutrient. So how do you tell someone, for example, your client or a patient, that how much amount you need to take it? How much amount of that food or the nutrient you need to take? So in that case, when no RDA has been established, the average daily dietary intake level based on the observed amount or experimentally found out. So whatever is found out to be adequate by experiment or by observation, that is called the adequate intake of that nutrient, when there is no established RDA or the EAR in the data, or it has not been told by some upper body like ICMR. If some nutrient has no such level mentioned in some guideline, then you can find out the adequate intake by doing any study or experiment. That is called the adequate intake. And the tolerable upper intake limit means the maximum level taken for a nutrient that will not cause any adverse effect. Because if you take more than that, it can cause any adverse effect. For example, fluorine. If you take more than the desired limit, it will cause diseases, right? So that is why the highest average daily nutrient intake level, which is likely to pose no adverse health effects for almost all individuals in the population. That is the tolerable upper intake limit. Okay, so this is how you quantitatively estimate the adequate nutrient intake in a person or in a population. Now, you are knowing how much nutrient you should take, but who should take it? Okay, because not everyone is similar in the population. So, there should be a standard or a reference body weight or reference man and woman body weight or characteristics that will help us determine that, okay, if the reference man and woman should take this much of nutrients, then you can calculate how much some other person might take the nutrient, how much adequate intake that person should take. So the reference man and the reference woman, we first start with the reference man, that is between 19 and 39 years of age, weighs 65 kg, height 1.73 meters and BMI of 21.7. Reference woman is between 19 and 39 years of age, non-pregnant, non-lactating and weighs 55 kg with a height of 1.61 meter and BMI of 21.2. The most important part in this is the weight. The reference man weight is 65 kg, reference female weight is 55 kg. Okay? That is the reference man and woman. And what are the other characteristics that they should have? They should be free from disease and physically fit for active work. On each working day, they are engaged in 8 hours of occupation, which usually involves moderate activity. And while not at work, they spend 8 hours in bed, 4 to 6 hours in sitting and moving about, 2 hours in walking and in active recreation or household duties. So that is a reference man and woman. Okay? These characteristics are shared by both of them. So this is another important thing that can come as question. Okay? Apart from the standards. So right now we are going through the standards of how you should calculate the nutrition intake. Now we come to the balanced diets and dietary goals. This is now from the nutrition level, you are going to the dietary level. Okay, what kind of food or diet should one take? Now you know this term balanced diet. Okay, so a balanced diet, it consists of many variety of foods, but they should be in the right proportions, the right amount. Okay, to provide the body with adequate amount of nutrients, such as all the types of nutrients like energy, amino acid, vitamin, mineral, water and others. And they make a provision for extra nutrients to withstand short duration of leanness. So, taking the nutrients in the right proportion and again making an extra provision to withstand short period of leanness. So, that is the balanced diet. Why to take balanced diet? Because it is used to safeguard from nutritional deficiencies. If you take this balanced diet, you will be protected against most nutritional deficiencies in the body. Because if you leave out one part, if you do not take something in the right proportion, if there is some deficiency in the food, there will be deficiency of or disease in our body. Okay, so that is why balanced diet is important. Now, there is a concept in ICMR called food guide pyramid or my pyramid. It looks like this, okay. It is in your book also, this food pyramid for balanced diet. If you want to make a balanced diet, okay, what is the proportion then? What is the right proportion? That right proportion is then made in that food pyramid. In the bottom of the pyramid is the diet or the food group that you should take the most. And at the top of the pyramid is a food group that you should take the least amount. Okay, that is why it is kind of like a pyramid. It will show the what food group you will take the most to the least. So the food guide pyramid is used for showing the optimal number of servings a person should eat daily from each food group. So here you can see in the bottom of the pyramid there is a vegetable and the fruits. That is the most amount that you should take. Okay, previously many years ago it used to be cereals, but now it has changed. Since 2020, 2019, 2020 it has changed. The most amount you should take is of the vegetables and fruits. Then it comes the cereals and the pulses. Above that there is the pulses, the flesh foods, the milk, the egg, etc. And the topmost is the nuts and seeds and oils. So in this way the food pyramid is there. So in general, in total there are 10 food groups such as cereals, pulses, vegetables, like other vegetables, then nuts, oils and seeds. Then there is green leafy vegetables, fruits, dairy products, roots and tubers, egg, fish and poultry, and finally spices, herbs and condiments. So among these food groups you should take at least 5 to 7 of the food groups per day. Then you will complete a balanced diet. And within those 5 to 7 food groups, you should consume the vegetables and fruits the most. Then you consume the cereals. Then in a lower amount, the milk, the dairy products, the egg, the flesh foods, the pulses. And at the top, the fats, the oils, nuts and seeds. So that is the least amount you should consume. So in that way, you should maintain a balanced diet. Another concept that is there from the ICMR NIN is the My Plate for the Day. Why My Plate for the Day? Again, it is showing you the exact proportion or amount that you should take per day. What majority amount kishe ache? What is the majority of the amount here? What is the majority? Vegetables and GLV. Okay? And then there is a fruits. Vegetables and GLV 250 gram, fruits 150 gram. Okay, so vegetables and fruits are forming the majority. Then is and millets. Then there is the roots and tubers, pulses and legumes. Then the visible oils, non-visible oils, nuts and oil seeds, and finally the milk or the curd. This should be taken at least every day by everyone. That is the proportion or the amount of food that you should take. And this is a balanced diet. You should take in this proportion so that all your nutritional deficiencies are prevented. Okay? This is there in your book in a paragraph. So I found this diagram to explain. So it promotes health and prevents hidden hunger and protects from diseases. Now there is, you can see a term that is hidden hunger. What is hidden hunger? Hunger, you know that you are hungry for some food, or there is hunger in the country, okay, that people are not getting enough food. But what is hidden hunger? Hidden hunger is basically the deficiency for micronutrients. Okay, hidden hunger is the deficiency for micronutrients that the people don't understand or feel that they are not taking enough of, but it is important to prevent many nutritional deficiencies. Okay, if you just take cereals and pulses every day, you will not be hungry, yes, but you will miss out on the micronutrients. So there will be a hunger created in your body for the micronutrients and it will manifest in deficiencies, even though you do not feel hungry. That is why it is called hidden hunger. Okay, so that is why the vegetables, GLVs, fruits are promoted very much so that you are not deficient in these micronutrients. Understood? So, you should remember the term hidden hunger. Now, there is another term called prudent diet. This can also come as a question. What is a prudent diet? It is a prudent diet. Why? It is to promote a healthy diet. So, it is used to describe a healthy eating pattern with fat of 15 to 30%, among which saturated fat should be less than 10%. And then low salt, less than 5 gram per day. Restrict the refined carbs, junk food and alcohol, and increase the protein intake to 10 to 15% through fruits, vegetables and whole grains. So basically, you have to take the balanced diet only, but there are several restrictions as well. You have to lower the salt intake, okay, you have to restrict the fat intake, and you have to avoid almost or restrict the refined carbohydrate, the junk food, okay, with empty calories, and the what? Alcohol, right? So all these things should be restricted and the protein should be promoted more. That is the mainstay of the prudent diet. Okay? Now there are some unhealthy foods as well. We have seen in the prudent diet healthy food. So what are the unhealthy foods? The unhealthy foods are the high fat, sugar and salt containing food, HFSS in short. High fat, sugar and salt containing food. So food can contain like high salt content, okay, more than 5, 15, 20 gram, okay. Then there is the high fat intake, okay, fill in saturated fats, trans fats and sugar, that is artificial sweetener or sugar instilled, okay, beverages like that. So processing. Now what is processing? How will this extra salt, sugar and everything, calories will be added in a food? By processing. The processed foods you have heard, right? So processing takes place for a food before it is presented to the population to eat. From the raw food, some processing is done. There are levels of processing. Primary processing, what happens is you just clean the food. For example, vegetables, fruit, you clean it, put it in a packet and sell it in the supermarket. That is the primary processing. Now, what is secondary processing? You alter the basic product. You alter the texture, the taste, the color. Okay, that is the secondary processing of the food. And tertiary processing is ready to eat food like burgers, french fries, like that. It is just presented to you, you can eat it then and there. You do not need to prepare the food, anything from it. Okay, that is the tertiary processing. So there are some processed foods like this shown in this diagram, that is there is the presence of additives like extra color, additives, preservatives, okay, that can help preserve the food for a long time. Then high in calorie and fat, but it is poor in fiber and micronutrients. Okay, so there are some unprocessed or minimally processed foods, as you can see, like fruits and vegetables, milk, okay, chicken that are available, raw chicken. Then it is coming to be processed cooking ingredients, then processed food like cheese, then there is a loaf of bread. These are all processed foods. Just some drinks, fruit drinks. Then there is the UPFs, means ultra processed foods. Ultra processed foods like pizza, chocolate, then your cake, donuts, burger. It is like that, these fast foods or the ultra processed foods, that is ready to eat foods. Okay, so these are, as you know, unhealthy foods that it should be restricted in intake. Okay, it should be restricted in intake in according to the prudent diet or the good healthy diet. Now that we are understanding what we should aim for in our diet, now let's look at the micronutrients and the micronutrients. Now the macronutrients, firstly we'll start with the protein. Now you already know what is protein. I am not teaching you any new thing. Just you have to always remember how much of it should be in your diet. At least 10 to 15% is a minimum level. You should include it in your diet for a balanced diet. Where do you get this protein? Mainly animal sources. They are the best source of protein. Egg is again termed as the reference protein, because from egg the availability of protein in your body is the maximum. Okay, 6 gram of protein you can get from one egg. Then vegetable sources are also very good sources of proteins, like legumes, means pulses, okay, beans and nuts. So from these food sources you can get the protein intake the most. So for protein intake 10 to 15% you should include these food groups in your diet. Okay. Now how much is the quantitative or the RDA of protein? It is 0.83 gram per kg per day in adults. In adults. But when you are when the for a newborn or a child, the protein intake is in a much higher quantity, that is 0.91 to 0.95. For the adolescents it lessens a bit to 0.88, and then in the adults it is now 0.83. Okay, it is now 0.83. 0.83 gram per kg per day, body weight. Okay, 0.83 gram per kg per day in adults, it is the protein intake, the recommended allowance. Now, the energy, that is how much kilocalorie is generated from it or how much energy is generated from it. For each gram of protein, there is 4 kilocalories of energy from protein. These are all the values that you have to remember for your exam. That is why I have highlighted this. You should remember that 4 kilocalorie per gram of protein is generated as energy. Okay? Then there is carbohydrate. Again, it is the mainstay, is the bulk of your diet, 50 to 80% of your diet. Okay? So cereals, pulses and other sources, they are the main source of the carbohydrates. Okay? It is the main source of the carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are present in the cereals, pulses, yes, in more amounts, but that doesn't mean it is absent in other food, like dairy products, egg, then flesh meat, fish. So in those products also carbohydrates are there. Okay, but the bulk of the carbohydrates, the main carbohydrates, or almost all of the cereals and pulses are having these carbohydrates. So that is why I have highlighted this. Cereals means rice, wheat, etc., millets, etc. Okay. Here also the energy formed is 4 kilocalorie per gram. 4 kilocalorie per gram of carbohydrate is generated energy. Now, while studying carbohydrate, there is one term you will come across called the glycemic index. The glycemic index. What is glycemic index? Glycemic index is, in layman terms, how fast a food can raise the blood glucose in your blood. Okay, how fast, if after consuming a food, does your blood glucose rise? So that is the glycemic index, the value used to measure how much a specific food increases blood sugar levels. So it is ranked from 0 to 100. So the more glycemic index, the higher it raises the blood sugar in your blood. So what happens is, in a healthy diet or in people who are ill or people from suffering from diabetes, for example, or pre-diabetes, they are recommended to take food with low glycemic index, so that whatever food they take, the blood glucose is not risen that much. Okay, so that is the glycemic index that you have to keep in mind while recommending food for vulnerable groups. And fats has the highest energy generation, that is 9 kilocalories per gram of fat. Okay, so there are, as you know, there are the saturated fatty acids, there is the unsaturated fatty acids. The saturated fatty acids are lauric, palmitic, stearic acids found in the coconut, palm kernel, butter, ghee. These are the saturated fatty acids. Okay, they are usually becoming semi-solid in the normal temperature. Semi-solid in the normal temperature. They may be liquid, but then majority of them are semi-solid at normal temperatures. Unsaturated fatty acids are liquid at normal temperature usually, and they are of two types again: monounsaturated fatty acids, polyunsaturated fatty acids, MUFA and PUFA. So oleic acid is a MUFA and linoleic and alpha linoleic acid is a PUFA. So these are the fatty acid names that are there in the fats. So they are told that some of them are healthy, especially the unsaturated fatty acids are healthier in your diet than the saturated fatty acids. So whatever fat you are taking in your diet, keep it, the saturated fatty acids should be less than 10% of your whole diet. You have to keep that in mind. The fat is total 15 to 30%. And among that, less than 10% should be saturated fatty acids. And 0% of them should be trans fats. 0% of them should be trans fats because they are the most harmful. They are deposited in your blood vessels, cholesterol, causing atherosclerosis, heart diseases, etc. Okay? So, what is the example of unsaturated fatty acids? Groundnut, rice bran, sunflower, sesame seed oil, etc. Okay? Then there is one linolenic acid and many other, there are the essential fatty acids, mean they are not found in your body, are not formed in your body, you have to take them from outside. So these are some of the foods that are high in trans fats like french fries, cheeseburger, pies, chicken nuggets, vanaspati ghee, donuts and etc. So these vanaspati ghee, for example, these are high in trans fat, or whatever is cooked in vanaspati or dalda, that is the high in trans fat. They have like totally they deposit in your blood vessels and can cause atherosclerosis. Okay. So now the energy and the fat requirements, you will find these tables in your group. Just a minute. This is the energy requirement. As you can see, for the adult men, there is a sedentary adult male, moderate work, heavy work. Then for women, there is a sedentary work, moderate work, heavy work, pregnant, lactating, and others. So what is this thing is, for the work capacity of a male or a female, how much they are working, whether they are of sedentary nature or moderate working or heavy worker, that also helps in determining how much of their energy intake should be. So not everyone's energy intake is same. It depends on the amount of work they do in their daily lives. Okay, so if it's a sedentary worker, in adult male it is a little lower than the moderate worker, which is a little lower than the heavy worker. In adult woman, sedentary worker is 1660, moderate worker is 2130, heavy worker is 2720. It is like that. Fat for example, it is like 20 gram, it is for 20%, and you will see in the next slides that how much you need to take for the fats as well. So, coming to the micronutrients, you can see there are some vitamin rich foods in this diagram. Okay, vitamin A, vitamin B, B1, B6 and etc. So, it is all there in your book. I am not going to elaborate much into it and bore you, but just remember that some fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A and vitamin D, they are found in vitamin A, for example, is papaya, then carrots, eggs, spinach, etc. GLVs, vitamin A is very much rich in that. Okay, and vitamin D usually found in the animal foods. Okay, usually found in the animal foods. So, vitamin A, it is found first of all in these food groups, plus it is fortified in the vanaspati ghee. If someone is taking the ghee, then what to do? You fortify it with vitamin A. Okay, so that the vitamin A intake is maintained in the population. So some foods are fortified with vitamins or minerals or nutrients so that that deficiency is removed from the population. For example, in the salt, the iodine is fortified so that there is less prevalence of goiter. One example is that. Then another is iron fortified atta. It is there. Iron fortified atta is there. Iron fortified rice is there in that is sold in the market to prevent anemia in the population. It is one of those measures, public health measures that are taken to control those deficiencies. So, similarly, the vanaspati ghee, whatever is there in the market, they are fortified with vitamin A, that is 2500 international units per 100 gram of that ghee. In margarine, milk, all these are, in this way the vitamin is provided apart from the raw foods. So, deficiency can cause xerophthalmia, that is What? Xerophthalmia is deficiency starting from night blindness, then till the keratomalacia. That is the degradation of the eye lining, conjunctiva and cornea, right? That is a degradation of those. So that is xerophthalmia. Then in the skin, that is a regeneration of cells, so it can cause follicular hyperkeratosis, anorexia, growth retardation, infections in the GI and the respiratory tract. So deficiency of vitamin A can cause all these factors. Why? Because vitamin A helps in the regeneration of cells. So if there is deficiency in that, then whatever will happen without regeneration of healthy cells, that will happen in this diseases. Then vitamin D, the animal origin food. Apart from that, vitamin D is given, is formed in our body from with the help of sunlight. Okay. Again, it is fortified in vanaspati as well by 175 international units per 100 gram of that vanaspati. Its deficiency can cause rickets in children and osteomalacia in adults. Okay. So this is the list of the deficiency of vitamins. As you can see, vitamin A is causing night blindness, keratomalacia, D is rickets, osteomalacia. Then E is causing mild hemolytic anemia in newborn infants. And K is bleeding diathesis. Bleeding, why? Because it forms the coagulating factors, vitamin K. So that is why it can cause bleeding diathesis. Then water soluble vitamins, thiamine deficiency can cause beriberi disease, riboflavin. Araboflavinosis means it is basically causing angular stomatitis, cheilosis in the mouth. Okay, it is forming those diseases. Then niacin deficiency can cause pellagra, pantothenic acid paresthesia. Vitamin B6 pyridoxine can cause anemia, peripheral neuropathy. Then biotin deficiency cause dermatitis. Folic acid deficiency can cause neural tube defects in children. If the folic acid deficiency is there in the mother, it can cause neural tube defect in the children, in the newborn. Then vitamin B12 cyanocobalamin, it can cause megaloblastic anemia and it can also cause problem in the nerve myelin sheath formation. So there is nervous system problem. And vitamin C, ascorbic acid deficiency can cause scurvy. Okay, so this is a list of vitamin deficiencies. It's there in your book. Again, I am not going into details. Then there is deficiency of minerals. These minerals are also very important. How? Minerals and human health, how are they related? If there is sodium deficiency, for sodium maintains a fluid balance and the muscle functions. If there is sodium deficiency, that may be hampered. Potassium maintains the nerve transmission and muscle contraction. Iron maintains the hemoglobin and energy metabolism. So iron deficiency can cause anemia. Iodine can cause iron as maintaining the thyroid hormone and metabolism in the body. So there may be thyroid disorder. Phosphorus in maintaining the bones and teeth acid-base balance. Zinc is maintaining some immune system and some coenzymes as well. So your immune system and some process in the body might get problematic if the zinc is deficient. And calcium, as you can see, bone and teeth, second messenger. So calcium is maintaining the bone and teeth in your body. If there is deficiency, it can cause the osteoporosis, etc., etc. So all those things. So and then fluoride deficiency, it can cause increased dental decay, affects the bone health. Selenium, it comes as an MCQ sometimes. That's what does selenium cause? It causes cardiomyopathy, increased cancer and cardiovascular risk. You have to also remember that not taking vitamins and minerals will cause deficiencies in your body 100%. It will cause hidden hunger and it will cause deficiencies in your body. So taking these are very important in your diet, especially now that they are the mainstay of your balanced diet, that is fruits and vegetables. Vitamins and minerals are the most important nowadays to take in your diet, more important than the cereals in your balanced diet. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind. Now we are coming to the final segment, that is the special diets. We will first see what is a diet that can be given in pregnancy and lactation. Now as you know, in the calories, you can see the adult woman is taking the sedentary work 1660 kilocalorie per day. Moderate woman is 2130, heavy worker woman is 2720. But when the woman is pregnant, okay, during pregnancy, whichever worker category she is, in pregnancy she needs 350 kilocalorie per day more. Okay. Then in the first 6 months of lactation, that is after the baby is born, in the first 6 months of lactation, there is 600 kilocalorie per day more. And in during the 7 to 12 months of lactation, there is 520 kilocalorie per day more. So it is added per day extra in the pregnancy, kilocalories. In the fat, it is usually 30 gram per day, 20% of calories it is providing. So 20% of calories means 10% of visible fat. What is visible fat? That is in the oils, ghee, whatever fat it is visible. And other 10% is from the fat that is not visible. That is there in the food itself, that you cannot see from with your own eyes. That is the invisible fat. And finally, protein, as you can see, the normal value is 55. The protein is 55. But in the pregnancy, you add 10. Okay, that is the protein. So in the second trimester, it is 9.5 extra. In the third trimester, it is 22 per day extra, means 22 gram per day extra. In the lactation, you take 17 gram per day extra, and in the 7 to 12 months of lactation, it is 13 gram per day extra. So these, I have highlighted these values because this is very important. They might ask you, anyone might ask you, and you will need that in your field visits as well. This thing should be known to you all, these values. How much is required protein, fat and carbohydrates are required, or energy is required in pregnancy and lactation. So how do you calculate? Basically, this is an example that protein and energy requirement in pregnant female in the second trimester. There is the additional requirement of 350 kilocalorie per day. Then total energy is 1660, means the original sedentary female, she required 1660, and now you need 350 kilocalorie per day. So you add it is 2010 kilocalorie per day, and in the second trimester you need additional protein of 9.5. So now you take the total protein, it is coming to be 61.5 gram per day. So it is like that again in the third trimester you then add, with the additional protein is 22 gram per day additional. So you the protein intake is increasing. Then in the lactation is what happening? In the first 6 months you take 600 kilocalorie extra. So it is 2260 kilocalorie per day, and additional protein is 17 gram. Again in here in the additional requirement of the 7 to 12 months of lactation, 520 kilocalorie per day additional is there. An additional protein here is, it should be actually 13, not 22. It should be 13. Yes, it is added 13 here. So it is like this. So this is what is the, how do you estimate the calorie requirement in a pregnant and the lactating woman. This is an example of that. Okay, taking that the woman was sedentary in the pre-pregnancy phase. Okay. Now coming to the diet in diabetics. Diet in diabetics, it is the same as the non-diabetic, that is like that, and the nutrient intake is tailored as per age, gender, weight and height. So the calories is the calculated calorie requirement should allow the patient to lose at least lose or gain the weight and maintain at least 10% lower than the desirable body weight. Okay, so the weight should be, the target weight should be a little lower than the body weight that should be there at that age. Okay, in the diabetics. So person above 50 years requires 10% less calories for each decade. So once the person crosses 50 years, whatever is the dietary allowance for the energy and the protein, it should be 10% less for each decade. Means 50 to 60 years, it should be 10% less than the that is there in the table. Okay, for the males and the females as well. So whatever is there, the dietary intake should be little lesser in the diabetics. That is what. But all over the proportion is a balanced diet in the diabetic. The recommended calorie intake is for sedentary activity and moderate activity is divided like that. and in overweight it is lower, the calorie intake. Ideal weight is 30 and 35, and underweight they need more kilocalorie per day. Okay, it is like this. In gestational diabetes means during pregnancy when the diabetes is developing, the calorie intake should be 30 to 35 kilocalorie per kg of the desirable body weight and 1.5 to 2.5 gram protein per kg body weight. This is a gestational diet recommendation. Okay. Now whatever it is there of the desirable body weight, that is they are calculated, for example 30 to 35 kilocalorie per kg they are saying the gestational diabetes. But how much kg will you multiply it with? You can ask that. You should always multiply it with a desirable body weight. What is a desirable body weight during pregnancy? In the pregnancy there should be a weight gain of at least 10 kg. Okay, by the third trimester it should be at least 10 kg. If the woman has only gained like 5 kg, or if she has gained like 15 kg, you will not multiply it by 5 kg or 15 kg, you will multiply it by 10 kg only. So the desirable body weight, the 10 kg means 10 kg increase. So the desirable body weight, that should be multiplied with, and that is how you will get the dietary recommendation, the recommended diet. If you multiply it with the original body weight, you will not find the actual calorie intake or the protein intake they should take. You should always multiply it with the desirable body weight. That is one thing you should remember. Again, this is coming, there is another thing, glycemic index, that you should remember while giving diet to a diabetic. That is, you should give food of low glycemic index to them. That is, if the glycemic index is 55 or less, that is low glycemic index. For medium glycemic index is 56 to 69, and 70 or above is high glycemic index. So you should avoid at least the high glycemic index foods in their diet. So, and then what you will recommend? Food with low refined carbs and sugar. These are high on dietary fiber, protein, fat, all these things. So fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, you should recommend to the diabetics. Okay. How will you recommend them? How will you tell them to eat? You should divide the carbohydrate intake into 5 parts of the day. Breakfast, mid-morning snack, lunch, evening tea, and dinner. That is 20% in the breakfast, 7% in the mid-morning snack, lunch is 33%, evening tea is 7%, and the dinner is 33%. In this way, you will divide the carbohydrates in a diabetic. Okay. So the diet, there are some overall dietary guidelines that foods that can be used liberally in a diabetic is vegetables, green leafy vegetables, spices, high fiber food. That should be used in moderate amounts is nuts, cereals, pulses, fruits, and milk products, meats, eggs, artificial sweeteners. Now why fruits are there? Because not all fruits can be given to the diabetic. Some fruits are very high glycemic index like watermelon. Okay, you cannot tell like, okay, take watermelon, any fruit that is there in the summer. No, you cannot tell them to take that. Okay, guava, apples, some lemons, they are having the moderate or the low glycemic index. In diabetics, you should tell them to take those foods only, nashpati, etc. So, whatever locally available. So, you cannot tell them to take any fruit. So, in diabetics, there is restriction of fruit as well. Okay, banana also you cannot tell them to take. It is like that. Then foods to be strictly avoided is sugar, sweet, honey, jam, alcohol, dried fruits. Dry fruits have high glycemic index. So you cannot tell them to take dry fruits. Cakes, pastries, sweetened juices. And so in short, the diabetic should avoid the sweets, use fat in limited amounts, take less refined sugar and pulses in the right amounts, include the high fiber food, take permitted fruits in limited amounts, and take vegetables as desired. So this is the dietary recommendation in a diabetic. Okay. Finally, there is a diet in the hypertension. Especially for hypertension, there is a name of the diet that is called DASH diet. DASH diet. DASH means dietary approaches to stop hypertension. Full form, DASH diet. Okay. So what is a DASH diet? Basically, it is a 5 points. A diet rich in fruits and vegetables, low fat dairy products, Eat more whole grain food, fish, poultry and nuts which are rich in potassium, calcium, magnesium, fiber and protein. Reduced quantity of saturated fat, cholesterol, trans fat and total fat. And limit the sodium, sweet, sugary drink and red meat. Okay. So these are the 5 points of the DASH diet. Now DASH diet, it will have a dietary chart 7 days a week. You will find the different food groups that they will take in different time points of a day. For the DASH diet, you make a dietary chart. And the diet is a little different for every day. But in generally, if they follow that DASH diet chart for every week, then they will manage their hypertension. Maximum people can manage their hypertensive levels, high blood pressure, by maintaining this diet only. Okay. So they can lower the blood pressure in as little as 2 weeks and also lower the LDL cholesterol, thus reducing the chances of cardiovascular disease and stroke. So this is the recommendation again given for the macronutrients and the micronutrients, where you can see the sodium is 2300 milligram. Okay. In the DASH diet, obviously, you will tell that less than 5 gram per day salt, that is the recommended, that is a rule of thumb. But if you want to really control the hypertension in that person, then you can go even low sodium. So low sodium DASH diet is also there, where the sodium intake is 2.3 gram per day, less than 2.3 gram per day. So that is there in the DASH diet. So as you can see, the fat and the saturated fat is 27% and 6% of calories. Cholesterol is 150 milligram, protein is 18%, carbohydrate is 55%, sodium is 2.3 gram, potassium 4.7, calcium 1.2 gram and magnesium is 500 gram, fiber is 30 gram. Okay. So these are the recommended amount for the DASH diet. Dietary approaches to stop hypertension. Okay. So just remember, this comes as a short note as well, DASH diet. Okay.